Hello everyone, welcome to Earth Archives. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment and share this video. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Thank you. Today's historical discussion is about the Mitanni Kingdom, a civilization lost in the flow of history. Did you know that the world's largest river, the Amazon, is facing a crisis of reduced water flow? This has caused the region, which traditionally relied on river transport, to now walk along dried riverbeds. In fact, many places around the world are facing water shortages. For example, Iraq in the Middle East is experiencing a devastating drought, and the water levels in the country's largest Mosul Dam reservoir have drastically dropped. It's as if the famous Sun Moon Lake in Taiwan were to reveal the full image of the Nine Frogs Formation. And similarly, the dam's reservoir has exposed areas usually submerged underwater. Even more astonishing, the region has uncovered an ancient city that is over 3,400 years old. According to reports from The Independent and CNN, the palace revealed in the Tigris River's Mosul Dam reservoir once belonged to the Mitanni Kingdom of ancient Mesopotamia, one of the least studied ancient civilizations of the Near East. Today, I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about the Mitanni Kingdom, a nearly forgotten civilization. You might remember that Mesopotamian civilization originated in the Fertile Crescent, the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which provided the foundation for many civilizations to thrive. Among these ancient civilizations, the Mitanni Kingdom is one that has largely been forgotten by history. The heart of the Mitanni Kingdom was located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, somewhere along the upper reaches of the Kabur River in Mesopotamia. While the exact location of its capital, Washukani, and key cities like Kahat and Taide are still uncertain, it is generally agreed that they were in the southeastern part of modern-day Turkey or the eastern part of modern Syria. So how did the Mitanni Kingdom rise to power? Originally controlling the northern regions of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Mitanni took advantage of the weakening Old Babylonian Empire and the Hittite king Mursili-Ver's advance along the Euphrates River, plundering Babylon. It is believed that around 1595 BCE, the Mitanni began expanding their influence. By around 1500 BCE, Mitanni king Paratana's power had grown so strong that he could control the city of Aleppo in Syria, situated between the Euphrates River and the Mediterranean Sea. This expansion marked a significant increase in the Mitanni Kingdom's territory. At its height, the Mitanni Kingdom controlled trade routes stretching from the Kabur River to Mari and from the Euphrates River to the Mediterranean. In addition, it held control over the upper reaches of the Tigris River and the ancient city of Nineveh, which was located near its sources. The Mitanni people had a good relationship with the Kassites, who spoke the Hurrian language, and the latter's territory roughly corresponds to present-day Kurdistan. The Mitanni Kingdom was located in northern Syria, bordered to the west by eastern Anatolia and extending eastward to Nusi, modern-day Kirkuk in Iraq, and the Tigris River. To the south, the kingdom stretched from Aleppo eastward to Mari on the Euphrates River. The entire region was fertile, requiring no artificial irrigation for agricultural production. This rich land was highly coveted, and cattle, sheep, horses, and goats were raised in abundance. As a result, the Mitanni were renowned horsemen and chariot riders. But how does this relate to their military innovations? The kingdom's written records are scarce, but it is known that the Mitanni were pioneers in the development of the light chariot. Unlike the solid wooden wheels used by the Sumerians, the wheels of the Mitanni chariots were made with spokes, making them faster and easier to maneuver. This design would later influence the chariot wheels used by the Egyptian pharaohs. A remarkable discovery in the Hittite archives at Hattusa, modern-day Turkey, revealed the world's oldest surviving horse training manual, dated to around 1345 BCE. Written on 4 clay tablets, the text was authored by a Mitanni horse trainer named Kikuli. The manual begins with the phrase, Kikuli, the horse trainer of Mitanni, says, and contains 1,080 lines detailing a comprehensive 214-day regimen for training, exercising, and feeding war horses, as well as a precise description of the correct techniques for horse training. Since the Mitanni were not the only power interested in Syria, other nations such as Egypt also sought to expand their influence in the region. For instance, Pharaoh Thutmose III, 1479 to 1425 BCE, waged frequent campaigns in the area. During his 8th campaign, Thutmose III defeated the Mitanni and their local allies, pushing Egyptian influence all the way to the Euphrates River. After constructing ships, the Egyptians ravaged the riverbanks from Carchemish to Emar, areas that had once belonged to the Mitanni. Despite Egypt's growing power and control over many Mediterranean ports, it was ultimately unable to dominate the interior of Syria. In the end, Pharaoh Thutmose IV, 1401 to 1391 BCE, established friendly relations with the Mitanni. By the late 15th century BCE, the Mitanni Kingdom directly or indirectly controlled a vast region, including southeastern Turkey, northeastern Syria, northern Iraq, and northwestern Iran. As for the language of the Mitanni, it was Hurrian, which was entirely different from the Semitic or Indo-European language families. However, not all Mitanni people spoke Hurrian, and not everyone who spoke Hurrian was necessarily Mitanni. For instance, after the Mitanni expanded their influence, they affected other ancient civilizations, including the Hittite Empire. This is a topic I hope to discuss in the future. Moreover, several Mitanni kings had Hurrian names, and Hurrian gods were also worshipped. This has led some scholars to believe that the Mitanni may have been a federation of Hurrian-speaking states. Even so, the true nature of Mitanni society remains a mystery. As for the records of the kings of Mitanni, very few have survived to this day. Apart from the previously mentioned world's oldest horse training manual, there are also records of correspondence between Mitanni kings and the kings of Assyria and Egypt, such as the famous Amarna letters discovered in 1887, as well as treaties with the Hittites. These documents provide evidence that between 1500 BCE and 1240 BCE, Mitanni was indeed a prosperous and thriving kingdom. Due to the destruction of Mitanni culture by the Assyrians, early records of the kingdom's kings are scarce, and we must rely on sources like the Amarna letters to infer details of the kingdom's history. In the 16th century BCE, some of the most prominent Mitanni kings were King Kirta, his son Shutarna I, and Paratarna, also known as Parshatatar. By 1430 BCE, King Shaushtatar had expanded Mitanni's territory by conquering areas like Alalakh. As mentioned earlier, after a long struggle for control over Syria, Egypt, under Pharaoh Thutmose III, eventually defeated Mitanni. However, the two powers later established friendly relations through marriage alliances. For example, King Artatama I arranged for the marriage of his daughter to both Thutmose IV and Amenhotep III, solidifying ties between the two nations. Unfortunately, very little is known about this king beyond these diplomatic marriages. Shutarna II, Artatama's son, also strengthened relations with Egypt by marrying his daughter to Amenhotep III. This marriage further cemented Mitanni's political and military influence, and under Shutarna II's rule, the kingdom reached the peak of its power and prestige. By 1350 BCE, Mitanni, along with Egypt, the Hittite Empire, Babylon, and Assyria, was considered one of the dominant powers of the ancient world, highlighting the kingdom's remarkable strength. However, the situation began to change when the Hittite Empire sought to challenge Mitanni's control over key trade routes. Hittite King Suppiluliuma. I famously declared that the Hittites were in conflict with the Mitanni, as Mitanni had blocked trade routes in northern Mesopotamia, extending from the coastal west to the mountainous east, from the Aleppo region to the Kirkuk area. Suppiluliuma I launched military campaigns against the Mitanni capital, eventually looting the city and installing a puppet king. This marked the beginning of the decline of the Mitanni Kingdom's influence in the region. However, this situation did not last long. In an inscription left by Assyrian king Adad-nirari I, it is recorded how Hittite king Shatuara I challenged his power. In response, Adad-nirari I led an army against Mitanni, defeating the Hittite forces in battle. He captured Shatuara I, brought him back to Ashur in chains, and forced him to swear loyalty to the Assyrian ruler. Although Mitanni retained its status as an autonomous kingdom at this time, it was now a vassal of Assyria, required to pay tribute and swear allegiance. It no longer held the same position as an equal among the great powers. Later, in 1245 BCE, after the Assyrian Empire defeated the Hittites, they firmly secured control of the region, incorporating the territory of Mitanni into their empire. This marked the end of Mitanni's independence, and the kingdom was subsequently forgotten by history. Jumping to the modern era, in early 2022, an archaeological team uncovered the ruins of a large city, which included clusters of warehouses, industrial buildings, and defensive walls. The excavation also revealed clay tablets with cuneiform inscriptions, some bearing texts that had survived for thousands of years. Experts believe that the city remains were well preserved because of an earthquake around 1350 BCE that destroyed the entire city. The destruction caused mud brick walls to collapse, completely covering the buildings, which helped protect them from being dissolved by lake waters. In fact, as early as the 2018 drought, the ruins temporarily exposed the remains of a palace. According to archaeologist Ivana Puljiz from the University of Tübingen's Institute for Ancient Near Eastern Studies, the palace showed signs of meticulous design. The mud brick walls were up to 2 meters thick, with some walls rising even higher than 2 meters. Almost every room in the palace had finely plastered walls. The research team also found many red and blue murals in the ruins, which may have been a distinctive feature of the palace. However, only a few murals were preserved. Later, the palace was once again submerged by water. As the water levels rose, the archaeological team hurried to protect the site by filling the ruins with gravel and covering it with waterproof tarpaulins to prevent future damage from flooding. In addition, the Mosul Dam, built on unstable geological ground, has raised concerns about its structural integrity since the 1980s. Experts have warned in the past that the dam could collapse at any moment, potentially causing catastrophic flooding along the Tigris River all the way to Baghdad. However, today the primary concern is the lack of water in the region.